Well, is it book time?
Yep.
Isn't it? Is it 8 o'clock?
Well, it's not 7:30.
Hi, welcome to the Wonderwolle podcast. My name is Andrea, and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Wonderwolle. I don't go on many other social medias, so you're most likely to find me on Instagram and Ravelry. I'm from Canberra, Australia, and today is the 2nd of February, 3rd, I think it's the 3rd of February. It's Thursday the 3rd of February. It's the first week back at school here in Australia, and I'm feeling a little frazzled at the end of the week, but still trying to get a bit of knitting done to calm those nerves. So this is a crafty podcast, and I will talk most about knitting and sewing. I do spin a little, not really. I have some spinning projects on the go, but they haven't seen the light of day for quite some time. And I would just, on this podcast, I just share my crafting and my day-to-day life with my little children here in Canberra and my husband. So I hope that if this is the first time you have watched my podcast, that you stick around and enjoy the podcast. And I hope that if you're a returning viewer, thank you. And I hope to see you and talk to you much more into the future. If you are a new viewer, this is a podcast which I started quite some time ago. And then I did for about 8 or 9 months. And then life got really busy, really busy. And I sort of just decided that podcasting was low down in the priorities of life and decided to give it a rest. And I really didn't think that I would have as long of a rest as what I did have in the end, as it ended up. So it's probably been just over a year actually since I last uploaded a podcast, and I have missed it. I watch other podcasts and I think, oh, I really should podcast, but then life gets in the way and I can't manage to get all of my projects into the one room at the one point in time. I can't manage to get a quiet house for enough time. And so I've decided that I'm just going to embrace all of the distractions and the life that's going on around me and do the best that I can. What prompted me to start podcasting again is there's a challenge on Instagram at the moment. I'll put it in here. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but I wrote on my post, on my first post, which was the introductions, that I had stopped podcasting because I felt like I didn't have very much to give, because I wasn't creating a lot of product, if that makes sense. I wasn't having so many finished objects, and I wasn't buying yarn, so there was no stash to share, and I felt like it was going to be quite the boring podcast, to be honest. So I decided every week, I was like, oh no, it's not very exciting to I don't have anything to share this week, so I just didn't. But perhaps that just means that we don't have as frequent podcasts. I don't think this will be a weekly podcast, let me say that much. likely to be a fortnightly to 3-weekly podcast. We'll see how we go. I have been knitting quite a bit lately. The other thing that stopped me, I suppose, and I don't know if other people go through this dilemma that I go through, which is if I've got something else going on, so if I've got another thing such as, say, exercise happening, or a goal that I'm looking to achieve, then I can't do anything else. I have to 100% focus on the thing that I am trying to do at that point in time. And so I was trying to get fit. I was trying to get back into running, and I was so tired at the end of every day that knitting time that I would have normally in the evening was completely gone, because I was going to bed at like 8 o'clock every night. So I wasn't creating a lot of objects. I wasn't creating a lot of craftiness, I suppose. And then before I did get back into running. I did a 14-kilometer event back in September, and then I started doing some trail running, and then I decided to do a triathlon. And I was training for the triathlon, and it was going really well. And then right before Christmas, I injured my foot, and I have not been able to run since just before Christmas. And so I moped for about 4 weeks. Not the best idea, really, because what's the point of moping? There's no point in moping. It doesn't get you anywhere. I could still swim, I could still ride, I just couldn't run. So of course, when the event came around, which was just this Saturday gone, I went along to cheer my friend on, and I felt a bit sad because I wasn't able to participate. And so I thought, well, you know what? I can still swim and I can still run, so let's keep training. So we're still sort of planning to maybe do something along those triathlon lines in April. We'll see how we go. It's starting to get quite cold in April here. The triathlon that I was looking at doing is not here in Canberra. It's at Bateman's Bay, which is about an hour and a half to the coast. It's an ocean swim, which I've never done before, so that would be quite different. We're planning to go to the coast in March, so we'll see. Maybe I'll have some practice swimming at the coast in March. But yeah, I'm trying to find that balance between working a full-time job. I'm about to start a new job, which I will have to change some of the practices. Like, it's at the same place. I'm not changing workplaces. I'm shifting into another role in my current workplace. Same hours, same days, but just a slightly different role. And yeah, it's all those things make a difference, I think, to how you go about your day-to-day life, and finding that balance between giving the children enough time and going to work and having your crafting time and doing exercise. It's kind of challenging, don't you think? I find it so challenging, because I feel bad. Like, I literally physically feel bad when I don't get to craft, and I'm sure that other people feel that way too. But then I also feel bad when I don't get to exercise. And there's, clinical proof, there's clinical evidence that shows that people do better psychologically when they exercise. And in fact, that's what I do for a job, is tell people that they need to do exercise. So I know more than anyone that's, necessary. So yeah, finding that nice balance. And like, when you have things that change, like kids coming back off of school holidays, that makes it even harder. So we're going through that at the moment, I suppose. But we have just talked for nearly 10 minutes, and I haven't even begun to show you anything to do with craft. So let's get going. The first segment, much like many other knitting podcasts, is about what's been finished. And I have not really finished anything lately. I went on a bit of a sock binge at the end of last year and knit quite a lot of socks. Some were gifts for Christmas. I was trying to participate in Kristen of Yarngasm's podcast's box of socks, Cal. I think I got to 10 pairs for last year, but I did knit more than 10 pairs last year. It's just that some of them got given away. So I did contemplate participating in that again this year, but I just have absolutely no sock knitting mojo right now. And I think it's because I have like close to 20 pair of hand knit socks, which are not looking like wearing through anytime soon. And I just can't justify spending the time to knit on socks when there are so many other things that I want to knit on right now. The last project that I finished was probably the Soft Sunday shawl by Suviola. I'll write it down in here. And I will show that next week if you like. Because honestly, the last few months I've really been trying to focus on crafting to a purpose. So crafting so that my finished products are contributing to my day-to-day wardrobe. And that's both sewing and with knitting. And that means that I've had to be very considered in what I'm choosing to knit. And I have tried to be a lot more single focused, task focused for the last month at least. And that's sort of my plan for this whole year, is that I'm going to be much more task focused and probably only have 1 or 2 projects on the go each month. We'll see how that goes. But so I do have a few things on the needles which I'll share with you, but I have not got anything finished to show you that's knitting related. I am wearing a shirt that I recently finished that's sewing related, and I will I'll insert a clip here of me standing up and showing you the shirt. So this shirt was actually a refashion. I've been hanging out in secondhand shops quite a bit lately, and I've been looking for those things that are high quality fabric, easy, it's workable. That's the word for it, workable, and something that is going to complement my style and the wardrobe that I have. I don't think I'll ever have 100% handmade wardrobe. That's not my intention, but I absolutely love having the injection of handmade things into my wardrobe. So this shirt was one of those things. Now on the rack, I think it was a handmade dress. It's a linen or a linen blend. It's quite a nice linen. It doesn't seem to, well, that's what makes me think it's a linen blend actually. I think that it doesn't crease very easily. It was a very unattractive shift dress. It very straight up and down, just didn't hug the curves very nicely at all, if you know what I mean. And it had this quite high neckline, as you can see. But I've actually turned that into a bit of a design feature. So basically, originally I unpicked the darts on the front and back. It had darts on the front and back. And then I tried it on and pinned at the point where I thought I'd just cut it off and hem it. And then I did that, cut it off and hemmed it with the little side vents, I think you call them, to give a little bit of movement to the shirt. And then I decided that the rear darts, the darts in the back of the shirt, probably needed to go back in. And that was the most tricky part. So I had to sort of find the point where the darts were originally. And talking about the shirt that I finished refashioning, it was really quite simple. The dress was like a just past my knees. It was too long, beautiful fabric, but not very flattering. And so I wore this shirt to work the other day. Nobody said anything to make me think that it didn't look like it was a handmade thing. And yeah, so I was pretty impressed with that. And I've got another shirt that I finished too, which I'll share another time. And I'll talk a little bit more about something that I'm planning to refashion later in the sewing segment. Or maybe I should do it now because we are talking about sewing. It's buried. I'll just get it. Hang on. So one of the other things that I found was this wool skirt. And it's really good quality wool. It's pretty old school. You can see by the tag, it's probably 80s, 70s sort of time, but it's 100% wool. And my plan is to just literally cut it off. So it's a knee length sort of skirt at the moment, and it's got these funny sort of panels in it, and you can see there where I've put the pins. That's where I'm going to cut it off. So the cut off point will end up being just above my knees, and I enjoy wearing tights in winter, so the skirt should turn out, everything going to plan, quite well, I hope. So I'll share that with you when it's finished being refashioned in a few weeks' time. It's not high on the priority list because it's still 38 degree, 39 degree Celsius days here of late, and wool fabrics are not high on my priorities. Maybe in March I think it will sort of go up the list of priorities when it starts to cool down a little bit. So I don't have any knitted finished objects to share with you at the moment. But let's talk about works in progress. So, like I said, I have been fairly monogamous, but I do have a fair few works in progress on the needles, which have been going since before Christmas, and I've just stopped working on them, essentially. Before Christmas, I agreed to participate in a test knit for Bex in real life. That's her Instagram name, and her designer name is Creative Naturally, and she also has the Creative Naturally podcast. And she designed a sock pattern, the homesteading socks, and I agreed to test knit them for her. And this was back when I was in this mad sock knitting frenzy, and I'm terribly sorry, Bex, but I never got to finish them. And so this is as far as I got, and that's going to look pretty terrible right now, but one of the reasons why I didn't get to finish them was because I got to the colour work section here, and then I tried them on, and I couldn't get them even over my foot, let alone over my heel. So I had to rip it all out and then find the motivation to start that again. And I went online and I looked up all of the tips and techniques on how to make colour work looser. I'm not a loose knitter at all. So one of those tips and techniques was to knit the sock inside out. So you're still knitting. It's not purling or anything like that. It's still knitting, but you have all of the float stitches on the outside of the sock, or the whatever it is that you're knitting, and that helps especially around the corners to keep the floats looser. And I haven't tried these on. I think they fit. Oh, sorry, my cat has just joined us. That's Chicken. They fit, and I can kind of show you the pattern there. Here we go. It's a little house. Bex has actually released this pattern already, So it's the homesteading socks, and I'm using a Higher Sharps 2.5, actually 2.5 needles, and Knit Picks Stroll in the Sweetie colorway, and this is Knit Picks Stroll, and I can't remember the name of the colorway. It's a really, really pretty heathered purple, and I used it for something else, and so I don't have the ball band anymore. But it's a really pretty color. If I can remember what it's called, I'll write it in the show notes. So yeah, I'm not actually knitting on these right now. I haven't picked them up for quite a while, but I thought I'd show them anyway because you don't see too many socks that have a pattern like that on them in a colorwork sort of approach. I've been keeping those in one of my project bags that I sewed up. It's just a drawstring bag. They're perfect sock size bags. I haven't popped any of these into my Etsy shop because, I mean, I've contemplated it, but I just haven't got to it yet. I haven't finished sewing any up. That's the problem. But it's going to be hard to see, but on the inside here I've put this little tab with a loop for stitch markers, and it is so handy. Oh my goodness. That was a good idea. So another sock that I've been knitting on, and I only started this last week and it was just an experiment. I bought some DK weight yarn with nylon in it for the purpose of knitting socks because my husband, he won't, if I was to knit him a pair of socks out of 4-ply, he wouldn't probably wear them because they were too thin. He likes thick socks. And so I wanted to try knitting some socks out of a DK weight yarn to have a go, and the blueberry waffle sock pattern is actually written for a DK weight yarn. So I went to that pattern. I haven't knit a pair of blueberry waffle socks before. I have knit a pattern with a similar rib but not exactly the same, and I used some West Yorkshire Spinners wool nylon blend DK weight yarn. And this is it here, and this is the first one. It's obviously not finished. It's really fast. I knit this in a day. It went so quickly, being DK weight yarn, I guess. But it's absolutely huge. Like, I tried this on my husband, and obviously he's got much bigger feet than me, and it fit him. And these were not for him, these are for me. So I'm probably going to keep going and just use them as house socks. I think they'll be quite warm and cozy, but it's been a good experiment. So you know, I think with this particular yarn, the number of stitches cast on I think was 52, and this particular pause. She just knocked my knitting basket over. Yeah, so this is the skein. It's a pretty purple colour. It's a very rustic yarn. I got it from loveknitting.com. When I say rustic, it's not what I would call soft. I don't think I would want to knit a garment necessarily out of this. There's actually bits of fibrous, not just guard hairs, but actual bits of like grass in the skein in parts. So it's probably actually a little bit too rustic for me, or it might wash up beautifully. I don't know. I'm going to reserve judgment on that. But yeah, so those socks, hopefully I'll have them finished by the next time I manage to get to podcast. But I do like them. They're very cushy, and the pattern's really nice. Yeah, it's just very different knitting socks with DK weight yarn when you're so used to knitting socks with a 4-ply. The heel just looks so clunky. is the word. It's exactly the same. It's like a heel flap and turn, but it just looks so clunky. I don't know if you can tell. It just wasn't as nice. I think I'm a 4-ply sock kind of gal, but possibly. And then the next thing on my needles, two more things. This is my work knitting project. I tend to knit just a couple of rows a day during my lunch break, or partial hat, which is just a twisted rib tube at the moment. Actually, it's a pattern which is on the Spotlight Australia website. It doesn't really have a name, just rib hat, I think. But I've seen a lot of hats like this commercially lately, made out of like a grey or black sort of mild colour, and I really, really want one because colourful things just don't go with my wardrobe. I wear a lot of black and grey and navy, and shawls are okay because they're that pop of colour, but unless you've got the exact same or colour in your shawl as you do in your hat, for me personally it doesn't work. So I started knitting this hat, and it was just a trial really to it's navy. It's a navy tweed, and it's a Cleckheaton Country DK, which is acrylic, viscose and wool, so 90%, 85% wool, 10% acrylic and 5% viscose. So I did start knitting it for myself, and I think I cast on like 108 originally, and then I thought, oh, it's huge. It felt like it was going to be really big. And so I ripped it out and I recast on 96. And then as I got through, and it's twisted rib, so, you know, it's very hard going. And as I got through the first couple of inches, I decided that it probably wasn't going to be for me. It was most likely going to be for my son, which he is turning 8 in a couple of weeks. So probably be a birthday present. And he's going to a new school this year, so and navy is the color that they wear for hats, so I think that will go quite well. He can wear his new school hat. So I've knit about 5 inches so far. I really only knit on this at swimming lessons and at work in my lunch break, and at work I really only do 2, maximum 3 rows in a day. So it's slow going. His birthday is in 2 weeks, so I might have to hustle on this one over the next week or so. I have 2 skeins of this. This is the first skein. There's just a bit left, so I think I will have to go into the second one. It's pretty easy to come by. I think that if I did want to like end up knitting some mittens or something to go with it, that I will be able to get a second or more of this wool to do that. And yeah, the colors are usually pretty good, especially in the darker colors, so I'm not too worried about them not matching. So yeah, and I like the pattern. I think if I was to do it for myself, yeah, the twisted rib is pretty full on, hard going, but once you get into a rhythm, it's okay. I think if I was to knit another one of these for myself out of DK weight yarn, I would definitely cast on the larger number of stitches. And I think that I'd want to use a fuzzier yarn, so maybe something that was alpaca or something that had a bit of a fuzz to it, because what I really want in the hat that I make for myself is so that the twisted rib or the rib stitches are sort of less defined, if that makes sense, so that the fuzz sort of blurs out the edges of the rib, but it still has that rib sort of look. So I think if I do make one for myself down the track, I'll look to use an alpaca, and I actually do have some alpaca blend. It's a 50% wool, 50% alpaca. So that might work, which would be good because then I can knit from stash. Yay. So that's that one. And then my last work in progress, like everybody else in the knitting world at the moment, is the Find Your Fade shawl by Andrea Mowry. I've always liked Andrea Mowry's patterns, but never had the inclination to knit one. And in fact, now I'm knitting this Find Your Fade shawl, and then I have at least 2 other projects of hers in my queue for coming up. Now on Ravelry, I don't use the queue function. I use the favorites. I used to use the stash, but I don't really do that anymore because I just don't use it. If I'm going to knit something, I'll find it in Ravelry and add it to a project. I use the project pages, definitely. I'm pretty good at updating with those. So if you see something, I haven't got this Find Your Fade shawl on there yet, or that hat, actually. That's a miss of me, but usually I'm pretty good. And then, but I use a web page called Trello, which is a Trello, which is a project management tool. It's free, I believe, to sign up for. I like using it. It's really easy to use. I use it for everything. I use it for work. I use it for reminding myself, but I put my projects that I'm planning to knit into a board on which is just like a column. You can put pictures in, you can say what yarn you're planning to use, and I just like it heaps more than the queue function on Ravelry for some reason. I find it visually much more appealing. So yeah, it's my preferred queue management system, I suppose you'd call it. But yes, too much ado, here is the Find Your Fade shawl. I can't see the camera. It's so big. So I've gone from pink, a light pink there. So this one here is a mini skein that I had from WonderwolleHandmade. It was a 20-gram mini skein. I can't remember the colour, I'm sorry. I don't know that she does mini skeins all the time. That might have just been a pre-Christmas special. And then this pink here is a pink that I had in my stash. I think I bought it on a D-stash actually from Skein Yarns, Australian Skein Yarns. And then I'll go into another Skein Yarns, which is that blue colour, which is a merino cashmere nylon. The first 2 are both merino nylon blends. And then this one here, this purpley blue colour, is actually a skein that I hand dyed myself. So I have been dabbling with the dye pots of late, and I dyed this one up quite a long time ago, so that's I definitely couldn't replicate that, but yeah, it's pretty. It's got lots of purples and dark pinks and blue. I actually just used food colouring for that one. And so I'm on colour E. I've just hit the lace. Have found the lace to be challenging. I always find lace to be challenging. I found the colour D section, it felt like it went forever. But now that the decreases are happening in the middle and you've stopped that, anyway, I can't give too much away, but it's getting smaller. That's my point. So it's going much quicker now, and I feel like I'm achieving much more in the time that I have available in terms of rows. There was days there that I could only manage to do 2 rows, like across and back, and that was it in a day. So this is where I'm up to with the colour E, and colour E is the colour Abril by Malabrigo Sock. Malabrigo Sock, colour Abril, A-B-R-I-L. It's really pretty purple, and it picks up those blues, if you can see that there. So like I was saying, I have had a fair bit of trouble with the lace. And I've decided that I don't care. It might not look so great, but who looks that closely really? Only I will know. And when you're wearing it around your neck, nobody cares. So it's never going to get entered into a show. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, I am looking forward to it being finished. I have enjoyed knitting on it. There's not a particular yarn that I've enjoyed knitting more than the others. The skein cashmere yarn was very nice. I did enjoy knitting with that one. And I'm actually going to make a 3-colour cashmere cowl using the leftovers of that and a couple of other things that I've got leftovers from, not next, but later on in the year, I think, as it gets closer to winter. Because yeah, that yarn was really nice, and I wouldn't mind having that in a cowl up against my skin. I think it would be nice. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy. I will definitely, that could be jinxing myself, hey. I'm going to aim to have this finished by the next time we podcast. Let's see how that goes. 2 more colours to go. What I'm going for is a fade into like a navy or a black. I am not 100% sure yet. I'm just going to get the navy and the black. So I've got this colour here to be my next colour. This is one that I dyed. I don't have a colour name. I was thinking it looked a little gothic. Gothica could be the name. I really, really like it. It's got purple, and that's coming up purple, but it's actually like a dark blue and black. It's quite similar to the Abril in terms of tones, like you can see there. It's not going to be a massive contrast, but we're going to fade into quite a dark navy, or the other colour is Melbourne Black. These two are both Miss Click Clack yarns. So this one is her Vincent, and this one is Melbourne Black. I got these a while ago. These are both on her Mary Quick sock yarn base, which is an 80/20 superwash merino nylon blend. I kind of am leaning towards the black, only because this skein has far more black in it than it has navy. And the end part of the shawl, it's only got a really small amount in it. So I'm leaning towards this and then this, because I have actually got plans for this. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I do have plans for it. So I'd rather not use the navy, but unless, of course, it looks terrible, or I think it's going to look terrible. But I don't think it's going to look terrible. I think it'll be okay. So those two left, and yeah, I'll probably finish probably this weekend, and I'll start F, and then probably by next weekend I'll have finished, I'd say, because I am quite keen to get on with my next project, which upcoming projects. I have been quite obsessed lately with Truly Myrtle, the designer, and her latest designs, which have been 2 sweaters. One is just a very plain sweater in she used Skeins New Zealand alpaca merino, and I do have it here. That was, I wouldn't say out of my price range, but more than I wanted to spend. And then I saw on her Facebook page that she had a discount code for a different Skeins yarn, which is it's a New Zealand yarn. SKEINZ is the brand, and that's .co.nz for the website. They to Australia at least, they have free shipping, which is awesome. I wish some Australian companies would do free shipping. That would be much more, I would be much more inclined to buy from you, Australian companies, if you're listening. Bendigo Wool and Mills. Anyway, so this is the vintage. It's a double knit 8-ply, 100% New Zealand wool. It's not super soft. It doesn't feel like it's going to be super itchy, but I think it'll be nice. So I got 12 skeins, and there are the color I got is porcelain, and it has 104 meters per 50 grams, so 114 yards per 50 gram skein. So according to the yardage of other people who've knit the oatmeal sweater, that'll be enough for me to knit that sweater. That will be my first adult sweater project. So that's going to be the next thing on my needles. So I want to get my shawl finished so that I can get this sweater on my needles. She also just released another sweater knit using blacker Tamar luster yarn, and oh my goodness, it is divine. It's called Gingerbread. Libby Johnson is the designer, or Truly Myrtle on Ravelry, and I want to knit that one too, but I want to knit it in the Tamar blacker yarns, and I looked up that yarn on the Blacker website because they do post to Australia. It's going to be like $128 Australian, and that's just, yeah. So I'm going to have to really contemplate that one, because I'm not meant to be buying any yarn this year. I'm meant to be knitting from stash, and I just bought that yarn, and I do have at least 2 sweater quantities of other yarn. One of them is an alpaca blend, which would do that gingerbread sweater really nicely, but I did have it planned for something else. So I'm contemplating. I might just have to put that in my wish list and wait. Or I might just have to get it for my birthday, because, you can treat yourself during your birthday month, can't you? Plenty of people do. So that's the next thing I'm going to work on. And then I really want to, I've got a thing for hats. I really want to make myself a hat that's beautiful, and I'm going to knit the pressed leaves pattern out of Cascade Lana de Oro in this beautiful pinky purple color. I don't have it to hand, so I can't show you, but that's the next hat on my needles as well. So that's all my projects that I've been working on. Like I said, I'm not meant to be buying any yarn this year, because I have one of those 8 cube IKEA Kallax storage units, and that is where I'm supposed to put all my yarn. It's full. Actually, it's not full. There's 2 cubes that are not full, but I have so much, like, it's crazy. And I know that some people have more than that, but it actually gives me anxiety when I have so much yarn, so many projects that I would love to knit, and not enough time to do them in. So I want to knit through some of the stash this year so that I don't feel so bad about buying a sweater's quantity worth of yarn, knowing that I've got 2 or 3 sweaters quantities worth of yarn sitting there waiting for me. So that's the plan, but so far I haven't done very well. I have to say, there's a lot of enablers out there, other podcasters, and the yarn hoarder, Amber, has been a massive enabler of mine lately, mostly because of her felted slippers that she knit and showed. And I thought that would be just awesome to make some of those for my kids. And so I bought some Knit Picks Wool of the Andes in the non-superwash. in some of this cobblestone heather colour, which is like a nice grey. And then another one which I can't reach, it's over there, and it's a blue colour. So one for each of the boys. I bought 4 skeins. It's supposed to be in a chunky weight yarn. So I'll hold them doubled and hope they felt really well. They should, because it's a non-superwash wool. I've also been sucked in because the Find Your Fade shawl, I know you're meant to go stash diving. I know this. But then when I realised that I was heading towards the very dark black end of the scale with my end of the fade, I had to go shopping because I didn't believe in myself that I had the skills to dye yarn that I would like, which is clearly not true because I do like this and I'm going to use it. But in the process of thinking like that, I did actually go on Etsy and I bought this skein here, which is from Jelly Beans Yarns. And it looks like it would do the job, but these parts here are just too light for the tones that I've got going on here. It needs to be quite dark, so that's not going to work, but it's still very pretty. I mean, look at that. I don't know what I'm going to use it for. Got no idea. But, so they're based in the UK, and this colorway is called Seahorse Nebula. It's a 25% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And it's really, really pretty. So she has lots of really, really pretty yarn on her Etsy shop. So go and check it out. Not that expensive either, like comparatively. So I was happy enough to pay that plus the shipping. Shipping from the UK to Australia is not too bad. So yeah, I bought that and didn't really need to in the end because I decided to dye my own, but you know what? Doesn't matter. It'll get used in something, I'm sure. I can't think of anything other than that wool I just showed you for the sweater that I've bought that's actually arrived. There's other things that have not arrived yet. But like I alluded to earlier, I have been playing with the dye pot. I have bought quite a lot of dye from Knit Picks actually over the last couple of months. Not with the intention necessarily to sell, but just to be able to dye. For those situations like what we've just talked about, where I want to dye up a skein of yarn to go in a particular project, but I can't find that exact skein of yarn that I want in Australia or easily sent to Australia. And yeah, so I've bought quite a lot of colours, and a couple of opportunities have arisen where I have had a go at having a bit of a dye myself. So just recently, this is the first one I had a go at, and that's quite pretty. I like it. It's a bit pastel. It's a bit pastel for my liking, but you know, I'm not. So I would contemplate selling my hand-dyed yarns, but I need to practice the recreation, if you know what I mean. I need to practice the ability to replicate the colour the same. So I do really like this. It's very pretty. I've also got a couple more here. I've got this darker purple one, and then I've got this bright pink purple. Oh, I really like this. I don't know what I use it for though. Like, I don't think I could wear socks this colour. So maybe it could be like a second skein in a shawl or something, but yeah, it's very bright. It's that colour, like it's that bright. And then this one here was a skein of 50% merino, 50% silk that I had, which was a light blue. I got it from another dyer a while ago, and when it arrived, it was just too light. It was really icy blue, and I just couldn't figure out, like if I had knitted it up into something, it would have looked white, which is fine for the right project, but I could just never find the right project. So I thought, well, I'll just have a play. I'll have a play with this and the dye just to see how the dye takes on a 50% merino, 50% silk. And so this is how it came up. It's not skeined up very beautifully, I'm sorry, but I don't know if you can see, it's really shiny, really, really pretty. I still don't know what I'm going to do with it because, like the other one, it's very, very pink, purple pink, but it's really pretty. So, yeah. Yeah, really, really pretty. So quite happy with all that. So I just remembered when I went to fix up my camera that I did have one other thing that I wanted to share with you, which is an acquisition, which just arrived today. And I bought this because Katie from Inside Number 23 knit the iced hat. And I really, really like her iced hat. I watched all of her vlogs from New York and I watched her wearing that hat and I thought, I really, really like that hat. John Arbonne Textiles yarn is what she used, and while I would love to use that yarn as well, I'm not sure they ship to Australia and it is a bit more expensive. So I was looking on loveknitting.com and I don't know why I chose this yarn. Maybe because it said it was lustrous, but I bought this Blacker Breeds Pure Gotland. I bought 2 skeins. It's a DK, but it's a woolen spun yarn, and I don't know why I didn't realize that. Maybe they didn't specify it. I don't know. It's a really nice color. It's the right color. It's the color I would like the hat to be. I think that's a nice color. It works on me. It works in my wardrobe. But it's a very thin DK, and or maybe it's just in parts because that, yeah. Anyway, it's a Gotland. Pure Gotland DK, and it's quite scratchy. Now, I've never knit with breed-based yarn other than merino or maybe Corriedale. I do have some blue-faced Leicester sock yarn somewhere, but anyway, I've never knit with a yarn that's not a soft yarn, basically. And I would love to know if anybody, because when I went on to Ravelry, when I received this and realized that it wasn't as soft as what I was expecting, I went on Ravelry to see if other people had knit anything that was interesting with this particular yarn, and not really. There's a few sweaters, there's a few, and I don't have a sweaters quantity, I've got a hat quantity. There's a few uninspiring gloves, mitts type things. It reminds me a lot of the Shetland yarn. It's got that same wooliness to it. Obviously that's a woolen spun thing. I don't have a lot of experience with woolen spun yarns. They're not readily available in Australia. So I really don't know what to knit with this. It's going to be a hat because I've only got 2 skeins. But I don't know if it would hold the cables well. I've read a little bit about it. It says that over time it develops a bit of a halo. So maybe this yarn would actually be a good yarn for my plain twisted rib hat. I don't know, but can you help? Has anybody used a Gotland yarn in a project before? And if you did, does it soften up? Do you have any pattern ideas? I don't know. I'm quite uncertain. I would hate for it to just sit there in the stash and me looking at it. I did think that maybe I should save it and use it and maybe buy some Icelandic yarn or something with a similar woolliness to make a cardigan or a sweater that has some colour elements in it, and then because I only have 2 skeins I could use it for that colour elements. And I know that there's a few sweaters in my favourites that do have that sort of a look. But yeah, I really wanted it to be a hat. I think it'd make a nice hat. It's a nice colour. So Or maybe mitts, but there's too much. Too much for mitts. It's very itchy. I just put it against my face and I think, oh, I could not wear that. I have concerns about it being a hat. Like, I feel like I'd need to put a liner in at the forehead to stop it from being itchy, because I have an alpaca hat that itches me, so I can only wear it for about 2 hours and then it's beyond bearable. So help, please help. If you have any suggestions for the woolly blacker Gotland yarn, I would love to hear them. So that's the end for today. It wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. I thought that when I started podcasting today, or next time I started podcasting after such a long break, it would be difficult and I would forget what I had to do, if that makes sense. But it has been okay. It hasn't been as bad as what I expected. So I do hope that you've enjoyed this podcast, and I know that there was a few little interludes there. And I will see you next time I podcast. Like I said earlier, I would like to podcast every 2 weeks, but I don't think that is something that I can make the commitment to right now. We'll see how we go. I will do my best. That's all I can say right now. So hopefully every 2 weeks I get a podcast out. But if not, it won't be too long after. So I hope that you do hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up if you have enjoyed my podcast, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. So bye, and have an excellent crafty couple of weeks. And then I'm going to put them back.
Book.
I have to go read a book. I'll be right back. You can go away now. Go on.
No.
Mate.
I'm enjoying a book.
Well, is it book time?
Yep.
Isn't it? Is it 8 o'clock?
Well, it's not 7:30.